90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. Today we're going to talk about sticky people problems at work. And our special guest is Tim McHeffey, and he's a professor at Suffolk Community Colleges and teaches business courses there. And there's going to be a wide range of problems we're going to discuss, and how the employee and the employers and friends of both can work out the best possible situation. Tim, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Thank you, Ken. Good to be here. I appreciate it.
Let's start out with the big one. Why is, let's say, odor so important? And what constitutes one? How tolerant should coworkers be? And what can the odor person, I guess the odorer, do about it?
Well, we're starting with what I call the granddaddy of sticky people problems, and that's great because we might as well dive right in because that is the toughest one. And it's a tricky thing to talk about. A lot of people are not even comfortable talking about it, but at work, it's extremely important, as we all know, that especially if our employees are facing customers, or even if they're not, even if they're facing just other employees, it's bona fide that they need to, not be distracting, not create a situation that's not pleasant, let's say. And it's important for the workplace environment that there be cleanliness and that people feel okay about working there.
And cleanliness may expand to other areas, and we'll discuss them in a minute. And sometimes the odor is like perfume or some cologne or something strong that, rather than an original innate body odor that's also causing a problem. People
Right.
may be allergic to it. It may be overwhelming. It may be uncomfortable.
You're absolutely right. And the way that this is handled, we have found, is best handled exactly the same as if it were a very unpleasant odor. I mean, even perfumes and colognes, if they're overwhelming, even if somebody's not allergic, it's a good point that you raised, but even if they're not, it can create an environment that's just not good to work in. And it really does count against productivity even. So it has to be taken care of. And I just want to say one more thing about like allergies, and even when managers are dealing with, let's say, a real personal odor problem, they'll often want to say, to the employee, well, it could be a medical problem. The great majority of times it's not a medical problem. And even with a perfume, they often will want to say, and people are probably allergic. That's usually not the case either. But it all comes down to really we have to be not brutally honest, but we have to have sincere intentions to take care of this issue in a very honest way.
And what is the best way to do that? And for who should be doing it?
I will go through a formula that I came up with. I want to mention first what's usually done. And the answer is, believe it or not, nothing. That usually things persist like this, mostly because managers don't want to handle it, don't know how to handle it, and they will, think about maybe leaving a note up or say, well, let's just bring it up in a meeting, or let so-and-so talk to the person, or maybe this person will catch on. Almost none of that happens in a timely fashion. The other, I think, really good question that you posed, Ken, was who should deal with it? Because oftentimes a manager will say to the person's, say it's a woman who's working in a department, and a male manager will tell a fellow woman employee, can you talk to so-and-so about this? And we have found that is not the way to deal with it either, that this must come from the manager. And this kind of flies in the face of what a lot of us have grown up believing is the best way to handle something like this.
It's also impossible to know if, exactly what the nature of what the problem is, but the source of it. So it could be personal hygiene. It could be clothes. It could be allergies or something else. Right. Should the workplace evaluate what it could be, or just bring it to your attention and provide assistance and support? Maybe a new wardrobe, maybe financial assistance, maybe encouraging them to make the medical appointment, or maybe there's some better deodorant that would work for them, as sensitive as that may be.
So all of the above are potential solutions and could be part of the problem that could solve the problem. However, the most important thing that a manager can do on a supervisory level is just bring it to the person's attention, make them aware of the situation. Because we have found that when that's done, honestly, and I have this formula called PHP, purity, humility, and patience. So when it's done honestly and humbly and patiently, that it will fix itself the great majority of time, because it really is an awareness thing more than anything.
And right. So should they preface it gently? We just want to help you do a better job. We want to help you advance. We want to help you be a better worker. We just want to promote collegiality here. And, some things you're really good at, should they give the good news first? But, we just want to bring some issues to your attention we think could be handled a little better. What would work for you if they were handled a little better?
Right. I think you're right on the money. And I suspect that you have been a good manager most of your life, Ken, because of the way that you're just even asking the question. The way that it could be applied, this PHP formula. Do you mind if I take it through a quick scenario?
No, please do.
Okay. This PHP stuff, it sounds touchy-feely, sounds Pollyannish, sounds corny, but it's really very potent in the way that it handles sticky issues like this. So purity means purity of intentions. We throw the word integrity around a lot, but purity is almost like a real belief in ourselves and our own intentions as managers to really want to handle this issue. So purity of intentions for everybody to come out good on this, a winner. Humility is not to be confused with confidence. We need confidence in dealing with issues, but egotism really gets in the way, and oftentimes managers will stretch the truth here too. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. And finally, patience with ourselves and with the employee. Here's for instance. Let's say the employee's name is Roger, and I hope none of the listeners out there are named Roger or have a Roger in their life that has this issue, but I'll use it anyway. So I would say, Roger, done in a private place, not necessarily a closed office where it could be intimidating, but a private place. Unless there's a human resource policy where you need a witness, but in many cases, that's not a policy. So you would have this conversation, Roger, I just want to bring something to your attention. Roger, I'm not quite sure even how to start this conversation. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that it's been reported that you have an odor problem. And don't ask me, please, where it came from, Roger. I want you to know that everybody is not talking about it or anything like that. It's not widespread. If it were me, Roger, I would want somebody to bring this to my attention. And then Roger could react in a lot of different ways. He could yell. He could storm out. He could cry. He could deflect and blame somebody else. He could yell at us. The patience comes in because any of those scenarios is okay. You, the manager, the PHP manager, you've done your job. You've conveyed the communication, and the humility part of it is important here, because there's an adage in management that says, never let them see you sweat. But this says, let them see you sweat a little bit. Tell them, I'm not sure how to start this conversation, Roger. And it's not a weakness. It's actually a strength. And regardless of how Roger reacts, the great majority of the time, this problem will take care of itself because you brought it to his attention privately, and whatever words you use before, you use beautiful words before to describe it, that it's in his best interest. And
also you're trying to help them to get to a better place. You're not adversaries. Absolutely. You're not trying to start World War III. You just want to get this little sort of minor issue out of the way so they can achieve, they can soar.
Absolutely.
Now, let me ask in that context, before you say it, And whatever problem this is, doesn't have to be body odor, it could be something else. It could be dress. It could be, something, maybe talking loudly on the phone, maybe eating eating and chewing loudly. There's a lot of people have pet peeves, and sometimes in the cubicle office, sound carries or smells carry, noise carries. Is it good to cushion it and just, say there's one issue we just want to bring to your attention? Tell them what a good valued employee they are, how good they're doing, and, how they're part of the team. But there's one little issue you want to bring to their attention so we can resolve it and it won't become distracting. So or that also we want to help you resolve it.
What you're describing, we used to call the sandwich effect, which was effective. And this goes back, some listeners might remember Ken Blanker wrote a book, The 1 Minute Manager, so many years ago, which became a classic. And he said, use the sandwich technique. If you got something good to say it. But then don't be afraid to tell the employee honestly. So yes, I do agree with that. And we should be doing that anyway, I think almost all the time. But in this particular instance, what I have found is that it's okay not to overdo it with that. Hopefully the manager has been doing that perpetually, continually,
right,
and regularly. And you have that good relationship. So this is not good news necessarily, this message, but it's very brief, very quick, and it's sort of is sandwiched in.
And what about the other part where you're going to help them resolve it? Maybe it's a medical issue. Maybe they need more clothing. Maybe they need better detergent. Maybe a laundry service.
All good points. And as I mentioned, potentially could be part of the whole thing. What I suggest is don't offer those things necessarily, because managers are not trained. That's almost a counseling type of thing, almost an EAP kind of thing, as you know. And I think to offer the employee to say, what can we do to help? And just kind of leave it at that. The person who is asking questions, manager in this case, is in control of the situation, and that's a good control. So if you simply ask somebody, what can we do for you? What do you need that could help this situation, if you can think of anything? And those items that you mentioned, it's an interesting question. I would personally start out by just asking them, what can we do for you? Because most of the time, they don't want to continue this conversation. You want to get the word out now. That said, can you have a follow-up conversation and stop back to them at their workstation and say,
and they may be distressed, as you said, they may be crying about it. So what should you say to them? Should you just let them cry? Should you say, we can discuss it later, we want to help you resolve it? Or what's the best posture there?
So I guess in my many years of doing this, I've only had maybe 20 or so people actually start crying. And that's a pretty good average, because I've had a lot of tough conversations. And what I've done every single time, I push the tissue box over to them and I ask them one question: would you like to continue this later? And not once has anyone said, if they're staying. If they storm out of the room, it's a different story. But if they stay and they grab a tissue and they wipe their eyes, they always want to keep talking about it right there. They want to resolve it as best they can.
And so, it helps give them some control of the situation, because they're losing it, because you're showering them with this, it may be a shock to them, or maybe they realized it, but they didn't want to fully embrace it, let's say. And again, sometimes it's not as personal coming from them. Sometimes it's because of maybe the detergent they're using. Maybe their personal deodorant is not doing a good job, or, maybe it's not just coming from their body.
Right. It's almost always, it's an awareness thing. And I think you're absolutely right in that you're helping them to embrace something that maybe they already knew. And it's tough to hear, but you are helping them, and they're going to realize that. And I just want to add, part of the whole patience thing that I alluded to before is, as managers, we shouldn't expect any employee to ever say, geez, thanks, boss. I was wondering that. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. Couldn't have been easy for you. That ain't going to happen. And it's probably not going to happen even 3 days later. But we have to know as managers that we're really doing the right thing here. Purity, humility, and patience. And it actually solves problems. It's kind of miraculous in a way.
And I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking with Tim McHeffey. That's McHeffey. and he is a professor at Suffolk Community College, and he teaches business courses there. Why don't you tell us the books that you've offered, Tim?
Well, this latest one, not the latest one, but the most recent we're talking about is Solving Sticky People Problems. And the website, if anybody wants to go to that, is stickypeopleproblems.com. And there they can sign up for my Sticky updates, all no obligation. But this book is available wherever books are sold. And I've dabbled in the past. I've written things on customer service and balancing work and home that I sold the book to Dun & Bradstreet, and we rolled out a seminar in California on balancing work and home. So I've been around the block with that. I've been talking about this one, Solving Sticky People Problems, probably for about 7-8 years now.
And your goal is to leave employees in a better place.
Yeah, well put, Ken. Yeah.
And I just want to remind our listeners, you're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. If you missed any portion of this program or you want to tell someone else about it, just go to nccradio.org. And what are some other let's say sticky problems that come up? What if they're just behavior of some employees? Maybe they're good employees, but they do cause problems, or their whatever their banter or their comments or whatever take a toll on some other employees who may not be part of the clique or the group. How can you resolve those issues?
Right. Yeah, that's you're right in there in the thick of it, Ken, right in the weeds. And one of the biggest questions I get, like at a seminar, for instance, is how do you deal with your best employees sometimes who deliver stellar results? There's also causing those problems at the office. How do you deal with somebody like that? And it's a challenge, certainly, but the as I said before, the person who is asking questions is the one in control of the situation. And control is not a dirty word here. You want to be in control. You've got people's best interests at heart. So it's going to sound very simple, but I would simply ask them. I would never threaten them. We know that tough guy management really doesn't work very well, and ends up creating problems, and we end up in court and so on. To ask them is taking control. Roger or Helen or whomever, you're one of the best here, like you alluded to before, sandwiching in with praise. And also there are problems that you create. Why? What can we do on our end to help the situation? And the humility here on our part is we're undergoing kind of our own embarrassment of why we don't know. A lot of times managers think, they're almighty and they should really have all the answers. Well, we don't. And to humbly say, Roger, Helen, what are we doing wrong here? You're great. You do a good job, but you're also creating problems. What can we do on our end to fix this? And sometimes they'll be stunned that you even asked. And the patience here comes in because you'll say, can you think about it and get back to me? And then when they walk away and we think, wow, I blew that, what a dumb thing I just did. You didn't at all, because you delivered great communication, and you have to patiently wait now. I call it patiently waiting for further instructions.
Are you giving the RUI patiently? Okay. Are you giving them a chance to control the situation, to formulate their response rather than telling them what they've got to do? Are you telling them the nature of the workplace has changed or evolved, that maybe this was, in general, people accepted this kind of thing at one time because of laws and the nature of work and collaboration, things have changed a little bit, and you just want them to get with the program?
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than how you just said it.
But how do you convince them to sign in for that? Especially if they've been there a while, they're a rock star, that they just have a certain type of personality.
So I believe that trust occurs over time. It can be lost in a minute, in a second, but it takes a little bit of time to build. So if we act like you just described in that wonderful sentence, if we act like that consistently as managers, that trust is going to build pretty quickly. And they're going to know that we're in their corner, on their side, and we're trying to do the right thing with everybody. And you mentioned collaboration, which is one of my favorite words. It used to be a workplace of competition and dog eat dog and step on people as you climb in the ladder. And so much of that has taken a back seat with, the word collaboration has really replaced a lot of competition in a good way, I believe.
And that's the better policy, and that helps get everyone involved.
Right. And actually, we measure that betterness with productivity. We have found countless articles abound on this, and my research has shown this too, that we simply become more productive when we have a more, and again, at the risk of sounding corny, when we have a more peaceful workplace. Peaceful, pleasant, patient equals productivity, which equals profitability. In
the long run. And you want everyone to feel valued, especially even this person, and you want also people to be protected at the other end. So it's sort of a delicate balance?
I would say, just like life, it's always a balance. And I think managers are paid for the quality of their decisions, and nothing is ever perfect. I mean, it seems like it comes into homeostasis once in a while, and then, we breathe and wipe our brow and then just stand strong for the next time it happens, because that's why we're there, to solve issues.
And make the workplace better for everyone and in the end for the company. And I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking with Professor Tim McHeffey. He's a professor at Suffolk Community College. He's also the author of Solving Sticky People Problems. And you've heard in over this program that why they can be so important and what are some gentle steps that can be taken to resolve them. If you missed any portion of the program, you want to tell someone else about it, you can go to the podcast at nccradio.org, and you're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC from the campus of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. What are some other sticky people problems out there, and what is the best way to resolve them, Tim?
Well, a lot of the questions that I get are really the typical management tenets that all of us have learned in college. How to motivate your employees, how to effectively delegate, how to have productive meetings, goal setting, and the list goes on, hiring and firing and appraising. So we can get into any of these, of course, with examples. But the one thing I just want to emphasize is that this formula, again, it seems almost too simple, this purity, humility, and patience. A lot of us are doing this and calling it something different, but I have not seen too much of this going on. And I've gone to courses, I've taught courses, I worked for the seminar companies, and this stuff is not in any textbooks. This really is you called it a gentler way of dealing, and that's true. And yet it's not soft, or the soft stuff is the hard stuff. There's a Willie Nelson line in a song that says, "It ain't that I'm wiser, it's just that I spent more years with my back to the wall." I screwed up a lot as a young manager, and I thought there's got to be a better way. So I'm not sure what the listeners would want to hear of those issues. I can certainly dive into one of them.
Well, the PHP formula works for all of these issues. And sometimes the trend is to have fewer meetings. And as we emerge from COVID, the PHP is kind of a guiding light for all of these issues.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. I saw a lot of ways that it did not work in dealing with things like this. As a student, as a young manager, I even looked in the teacher's guides of textbooks. I did personnel law seminars for SkillPath, and I thought, well, these people have to have it together in their curriculum. It's got to be in there. It wasn't there. And so many of the issues, the questions I would get in seminars and just dealing with clients, they would ask, what do you do when this happens? And that's what they were after. How do you really deal with these sticky issues?
And do these work in all types of environments, at a law firm, an accounting firm versus an assembly line?
Yes, all of the above. And I don't want to be overly generic, but I have 4 grown kids and grandkids, and I believe that managing people is very much like teaching students, is very much like raising children, and even taking care of customers. There's a certain communication, respect kind of thing. All this is a communication device. And Yes, emphatically yes to all those things.
And on the flip side, sometimes the idea that parents or bosses would use my way or the highway, that's not really the best way to approach everything.
I've not seen that work too often. I mean, is fear a motivator? Absolutely. Does it work? Can it be applied? Should it be applied in certain situations? Probably. But long term or consistently, no. It's just because the minute the manager's not there or turns his or her back, the party begins. And I have another adage that says that a good workplace is that which runs well even when the manager is not there, or maybe even better when the manager is not there. And that means that, that they're doing it for the right reasons. You've delegated well, and they're doing it for the right reasons. And you don't have to be there, watching over their shoulder all the time. That's Theory X management, and it's not terribly effective, especially these days. You mentioned before coming out of COVID, so much has changed. It's become a much different work society. And
it's a good time and a good way to reinvent the workplace. Anyway, I'd like to thank our guest, the author of Solving Sticky People Problems. If you missed any portion of the program, want to tell someone about it, just go to the website, nccradio.org, and please join us next week at this same time on Law You Should Know on 90.3 FM, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York.